when I was 14, my parents drove me from Ottawa to Toronto to attend Canadian Music Week. I was seeing if I could learn about the industry. I was starting to be serious about a career in music. And I waited in line for hours at a future shop at Yonge and Dundas to see a bunch of bands, to get some pictures and autographs. So there was the Salads, there was Not by Choice, there was Edwin from I Mother Earth, there was Fifi Dobson, there was Sean Desmond, and there was the Mudmen. So I have a picture of a 14-year-old Joel Martin with bleached blonde hair and gray shiny pants that look like I'm auditioning for a Cisco video. And I'm getting an autograph from you guys. So that is my first in-person connection with you guys. I probably didn't even say hi, but I got an autograph and a picture. And then years later, so about 12 years later, I'm now living in Toronto, and the Mudmen are huge. You guys have all these videos on Much Music and on the radio. I'm a big fan, and I see that you guys are auditioning for a singer. So I reach out and I message, and you guys are like, yeah, sure, let's do an audition. So you guys come to my shitty apartment, you sit down at my shitty kitchen table, and I do an acoustic audition, just acoustic guitar and vocals. And you guys loved it. So that was me in my element with the way that I play. You guys loved it. Things were looking good. We were talking about tour dates and contracts and all this stuff. A week later, I go out for the first full band audition, and we very quickly realized that my pretty little voice is not a great fit for the rock radiation, for the Celtic Warriors. We need something a little more powerful. So that was my 1 week of kind of being an unofficial member of the Mudmen that I forgot about because it was so quick until I was preparing for this interview. So what are your thoughts on those two memories?
Well, we said, I'll let Rob talk about the first one, but the second one, I remember coming to your apartment distinctly. We came with Big Al, who played with us for about 8 years, and Al was a fantastic guy. And I still remember your apartment, and I guarantee it was better than where we were living. And so anyway, we'll get into that later too. But in the process of making this dream, Rob and I have lived in some factories where we rehearsed, and we've got some good stories there. And you were fantastic, and we checked out your stuff from Canadian Idol and all that good stuff too. Which I've heard different rumors that people say you don't actually want to be in the top 3 because you might be owned. But and then that's one of the hard things with singing with us when you're stuck in that B flat. If your voice doesn't hit that spot, you're going to blow your voice out because you're either singing too high all night or you're singing too low. And that's a question people have asked us, but it's one of the reasons we went through a bunch of singers too, because it's just, if it doesn't suit your voice, it's not sitting in the right range, there's a good chance you're going to lose your voice singing with us. It's hard.
Yeah, I have a high nasally voice that is quite a bit higher than my speaking voice, and I found it to be quite challenging. And I actually have a quote here. So I have some fan questions that are sent in. I reached out to some mutual friends, and this is from former Mudmen singer Steven Gore. So this is a long quote because he misses you guys. So bear with me while I read this. And he talked to me about the challenge of singing that high and that low, and him having to find his groove and how not to burn out the voice. So this is what he says. I believe he recorded about 3 albums with you guys. So he says, the Campbell brothers are 2 of the hardest working men I've ever known. There were nights on the road when they would spend hours talking to fans at a Tim Hortons. That's too funny that he mentions Tim Hortons. We're going to get that sponsorship. Instead of getting sleep after driving across the country, I would be absolutely exhausted some nights. And I realize now that in order to build anything worthwhile, you have to connect with people that believe in you and go out of your way any chance you get to keep building those relationships. That's how you build successful grassroots fan bases. And it's the same way you build a successful business, not by being a salesman, but by building relationships. Looking back, I respect the brothers even more than I could have understood at the time for the band and the business they created over 20 years ago. They built it the right way. This is a long quote. We're halfway through.
All right,
So
that's
here we
good.
go. It says a lot that these same fans show up every time we were in town after all these years. Even if we were playing in a small town in the middle of nowhere, touring our way to the Grey Cup, it always felt like a home game for us. And it's because the brothers continue to grind, build, and foster relationships that will last a lifetime. I haven't been able to catch up with them in years other than over the phone, but I know when we see each other again, the bond and friendship will never change. My voice isn't what it used to be, and I sell houses now, but there's something about the bond you will build with people when you're living your dream and fighting tooth and nail every damn day to not let go. Not to sound too dark, but touring this beautiful country with those guys will likely be one of the last great memories that rolls through my mind when I'm laying on my deathbed. That is from Steven Gore, former Mudmen singer. Does that get you right in the feels?
Oh yeah,
that's great.
and we said like again, he was a great guy, fantastic guy. We've got some really good stories with Steve over the years, and there was a few times too there where he was having some throat issues. So he was a trooper. He went through it. Where we had a great story actually one time in Calgary. Our booking agent at the time phoned us up and he said it was St. Paddy's Day. He said, "Would you like to double up? Would you like to do a second show?" And we're like, "Sure." Rob and I've done where we've played just as pipers in the morning and then Guelph University in the afternoon and then Norma Jean's in London at night. And so we've doubled up many times and make a little extra money. So our booking agent booked the two bars. They're only a block and a half apart, owned by the same owner in Calgary. So this is March, of course. So it's Calgary. It's a little different than Ontario in March. So it's a little cold. And well, what we didn't realize then when we got all the information was what they wanted is we had to play 45 minutes at the one club, then run down the street a block and a half over the ice and everything and do 45 minutes in the other bar, and then a 10 or 15-minute break to get back running down the street and do 45 minutes, and then a 10, 15-minute break to run down the street and do it again. So we did 6 sets, and we had a fiddle player with us too. So we leave just a fiddle player and drummer and start packing stuff. And Rob and I'd hurry down and we'd start the next set without the mandolin, guitar, fiddle player. We'd start, and that's how we made it work. But Steve Gore was on that one, and we did the 6 45-minute sets that night. We had to run back and forth down the street, and you know he was a trooper.
He was a trooper because that was a tough gig, and then there was no time to drink. St. Paddy's Day, everybody wants to have a few drinks. The bar is just slammed, and you're like, "Oh, could we get some drinks to the stage here?" So we owe him a few cold ones or a bottle of scotch over that one. And Steve was such a great guy. He had the Asian flu one time, and we were touring, and I don't know where he got it, or how he got it, but anything's possible in Grand Prairie. But he soldiered on. He was singing, and he was sick. We had him in the hospital, and the doctor told him to fly home, and he didn't leave us. He was a good guy that way. And there's times there he got fried one time in Colbert, and it's a pretty funny story. And I don't
hold on. I love how you guys say one word and the other guy reacts like he knows the story. So you just said he was fried, and then we get a laugh. You said, "Oh, we're in Calgary," and we get a laugh. You guys just know these stories inside and out. Anyways, continue.
We were playing the Highland Games in Colbert. So I don't know if you've been to Colbert, but they've got a nice little amphitheater there. And so they've got the change room underneath and stuff like that. So we were downstairs with the organizer. They're paying us and showing us the dressing room and stuff like that. So the guys are doing sound check upstairs. And we hear this big boom and then boom. And we're like, "What the hell is that?" Whatever, right? We're like, "Yeah, something fell over or something. I don't know, blew an amp or something," right? Well, the guy had the monitors jacked, and I don't know what he did, but when Gore went up to say check 1 2 on the microphone, he got about 6 inches away from it. A blue spark flew, knocked him on his ass, blew the monitors all to help. The breaker flipped in the basement, and the thud we heard was him hitting the ground and his guitar in the whole bit. And so we came up, thinking, what's going on with sound check, and guy almost killed Gore. And so Gore, anybody else would have went to the hospital and said, "I'm not doing this," or "This guy can't mix this." He soldiered through. He's a good guy, and he went through with it. And then at the end of the night, the guy comes up to us and goes, "Man, I'm a big fan of your band. I'd like to tour with you guys, give him a business card." And it's like, you're a nice guy, like Roddy Piper said. You're a lousy wrestler, though. But you just about killed my singer, and you're handing me a business card. It's like,
it's funny because we've heard of that before, because we're the type of guys that we roll in to play. Where was that? Bengal, Saskatchewan, and there's a tornado coming in, and so we arrive and. We get into town and we go to the festival buyer, and she says to us, well, we have to cancel because there's a possibility of this tornado and it wouldn't be responsible of us to go ahead. And we said, well, we'll play anyway. Whatever you want, we'll do it, right? We're going to get paid regardless, keep in mind. So like, I think Big Sugar and Wide Mouth Mason and a few other bands were on this, and they got paid and they had to be on their way for the next day. So we said to her, okay, well, we've got a show tomorrow, so we have to leave. But if you're doing like a pancake breakfast or something, we would play the pancake breakfast, right? So that we're not just taking money for not doing anything. So we did this just to be nice, and next morning we played the pancake breakfast, and it was fantastic. We sold lots of merchandise, and it turned out it worked really well. And then we had to be on the road by like noon because we had a 9-hour drive to our next gig, and it actually really worked out. And then sometimes that's how people remember you. They don't forget that these guys, they didn't have to do that. They could have taken their money and got paid in full and left, but they went out of their way to try to do something,
We said a funny Steve Gore story I shouldn't tell, but I'm going to. There's numerous. You read a book on that guy. He was a great character. But we were playing up Sault Ste. Marie, and this pipe band decided they wanted to pipe us onto the stage. And we said, yeah, we'll talk to the promoter because, it's not my call. I'm not the festival guy. So anyway, so they squeezed their way on there, whatever else. So they're in our little trailer there. And so Sam and I are selling merch and talking to fans and stuff, and we hit the stage. And apparently the pipe band was drinking our beer riders, so Gord got the idea to take all the beer onto the stage because, to make sure there's a few left for us when we finished. And so we got done, and Sam and I are selling merch again. We missed all the excitement, but the pipe band came up to Gore, most likely thinking it's his band and he's the leader, and they were mad because you took all the beer and that was for everybody performing. It's like, no, when they did the country show in the afternoon and they had, I forget, Dallas Smith, we didn't drink his beer. So Gore said to him, you want to drink? And he pulls out this big bottle of scotch. He said, come on, kid, let's go. And he put the kid was laying on the ground, whatever else. And the mom comes over, what did you do to my kid? And it's like,
oh yeah,
he wanted to drink. It's like
so he went shot for shot. Another guy we should mention, and because when you talk about Steve Gore, the reason Steve Gore actually got in the band, which is also good for you to know, is because our bass player at the time, Mario Boza, it's like, I've got this friend of mine, that I should have thought about. I think he'd be great for the group. And so that's how Steve got in the band, was through Mario Boza. And so they're best friends. And now they're doing a little side project called Mario and Me. So you can check that out.
Me and Mario.
Or Me and Mario?
Me and Mario, yeah.
Me and Mario. So they're doing this side project. And Mario was another guy. He was the slim guy we talked to one time before about how much he could eat. And he's out working on the ships now. I just talked to him the other day for, I think, 2.5 hours or something like that.
I've listened to the entire Mudmen discography to prepare for this. So I was already familiar with a lot of the music. And even though there's several different singers over the course of the discography, there's at least 3, I believe. They each had their own uniqueness to them, but there's still something that connects all of them. There's this Mudmen tone that runs through all the singers, yet I could still identify when it was someone new. What do you account for that? Is it that you were looking for something specific when you were auditioning singers?
We were definitely looking for something specific, but I'll be honest, you don't always get what you want to, and Zoe, for example, our first singer, who was with us for probably 10 years, he had a huge break.
So he was on the EMI records and Defending the Kingdom, and then it switched over. Okay.
Yeah. So he was on the first 3, and then Morty came in, and Morty, when he came in, his voice was very high, to be honest. So it's like, it's really, it would have been nicer. Like Steve Gore was more, deep, and he was more what we would have liked to have. But Morty was an awesome singer. He had a great voice, and what a character. Oh my God. We have the best stories on Morty from going across Canada. But of course, we have to, in the book and stuff, we don't put names to the stories.
I was gonna, so to distance him from these stories later on, I'm gonna ask, what is the craziest story, like entertainment industry story, that you can share? And with all the days on the road, I'm sure there's something. So we'll distance him from that, and later on we'll talk about some crazy stories.
We said he was fantastic. And I think, like, the first album that we started, most of the songs started from Rob and I. So, and then we had Dave Martin, the record label, brought him in to write a couple of hits for us, and that was fantastic. He's a great guy.
He's got a powerful last name. I approve.
Oh yeah, yes, exactly.
Yes,
yeah.
True.
And but a lot of the songs started with Rob and I, and you have to work again around the bagpipes and being in B flat. So I think that's one of the reasons there's some, cohesiveness. I was surprised that we were able to put all those different albums and singers together, and it actually worked, because I thought, oh God, because we made some big changes where, like, that High Road album, which is, we went really punk and high energy. And, we were the band that we get to close the festivals. The big headliner goes on, and then we're stuck trying to hold the crowd, and but we could sell booze and hang and hold the crowd. So we kind of embraced that. So we wrote a whole album about drinking, and that worked very well for us. And we continued to go along the image of being pretty wild characters. And then when the Hockey Night in Canada thing actually happened too, it's like, oh man, this is a really good opportunity for us to make a big shift. And when you have Ron McLean saying, "Mudmen, we love them," then maybe you have to be a little more respectable sometimes too, and be careful what you're doing on and off stage. And the Donegal Danny album we thought was a good one to get us into more Highland games and really hit that traditional kind of market, but it was very traditional. And so we've made quite a few changes over the years, and yet I know we've hung on to our fans. I don't know.
Well, like Sandy said too, when Ron McLean gave us that big plug, and he embraced our product and brand, and that's when we really started to get back into the corporate world as well. We started out in the corporate world playing for Walmart, Weedman, and stuff like that, and we've got some great corporate stories that we can share if you want some of them later on or right now or whatever. But we said, our music had to be kind of you kind of had like a plane elevated to where we wanted to go with the more family direction, the theaters, this and that. And Ron McLean said that to us too. He really liked the direction we were going. He said, "I love Drink and Fight," but he said it's not the kind of song you want in your car every day, right? And there's a lot of truth to that too.
Well, we said we've become more the band. For an example, a great example would be something like, probably Tom Petty, Great Big Sea,
Spirit of the West.
Spirit of the West would be a good one.
Kind of the music you want to come on if you have friends over, like just a good vibe.
That it lands here.
Doesn't
that it might not be heavy enough for some people, but it's still good. And then
it's still not Shania Twain.
It lands, it lands somewhere in the middle. Whereas if you go, like, we were pretty extreme in one direction, where people like our mom and the older generation, we told her to never come out during those years. But now we're landed more in the middle, and we play all these family festivals, and there's so many more options. And I mean, the bar scene, honestly, we had a lot of fun, but we never made any money, or
we can still juice it up if we get in the beer tent at the Plow Match, and there's a bunch of redneck farmers that sponsored by mostly Canadian or something. We could still juice it up when needed. But we said we're that band that it's been said to us one time, Mick, that was road managing the Guess Who and Glass Tiger, said to us one time, he's like, "You guys should teach a course because on survival and how to do things." He said, "I've never seen a band play for kids, bikers, Celtic, and seniors with the same set list in the same weekend." whatever, right? Like, you know, because we've been on cars before where, you know, he's road managing one band, and then the next thing he's this band and that band, whatever else. And he said, you're playing the same set list and you're getting away with it. You know, most times
You know,
gotta,
we're out there playing Dauphin Country Fest, for example, one night, and then we're playing, you know, a wild bar, and then you're playing a theater to like more like a lot of older people, you know, and then we're opening for Five Finger Death Punch.